Well, even outside of As Above, you guys have done Quarantine, the Poughkeepsie tapes. I don't know if you guys have seen that amazing film. Again, I think that was the first time y'all dropped on my radar. And it's like, these guys seem messed up. I like that. That's a real fun one. You guys did Devil. Just a little background before we kind of dive into this. You guys are from Minnesota originally. I know a little bit of your backstory, but for those who don't, how did you end up in Los Angeles torturing all of us with your visions?
Well, we started off... Is this on? Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we started off writing, like, really as kids. Like, you know, I'd start just writing stuff at night when we were in high school and then bringing it across to his room because we went to this military school. It wasn't cool to, I was like writing poetry and all sorts of, it wasn't cool there. So, but I could show Drew anything, and then he'd start critiquing, and we'd start shifting things around, and that's sort of how we started.
That's true. And Minnesota's incredibly cold, as you probably know. So it's very long winters. You got to do something to entertain yourself. This was back, pre-internet. The video games were very good back then. So we did a lot of, in-house creation of stories and things like that.
Back when you got your entertainment from here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You had to really go for it.
Yeah, Minnesota sort of breeds weirdos.
It does.
You got the Coen brothers, Bob Dylan, Terry Gilliam. Like, it's all these, like, there's a lot of weirdos that sort of, I think just those months indoors just sort of drive you nuts.
Well, even outside of As Above, you guys have done Quarantine, the Poughkeepsie tapes. I don't know if you guys have seen that amazing film. Again, I think that was the first time y'all dropped on my radar. And it's like, these guys seem messed up. I like that. That's a real fun one. And you guys did Devil. So obviously, I think you guys have a pretty clear sort of vision on point of view. Point of view, I think, as we all know. How many of you guys are filmmakers, content creators, producers? Yes.
Nice.
Thank you so much. Great. You guys have a very clear vision of your point of view, and you're telling a lot of these stories with found footage. So kind of going into that, is that sort of a device that going into a project that you're going to be using, or does sort of the material lend itself to that?
Well, I think one of our big fascinations is perspective. Like even in Devil, which it's not found footage or anything. People kept asking how are you going to keep the elevator interesting in that? And what we did was, for every scene, we tried to pick a character whose scene it was, and then sort of show a close-up of them and then what they were seeing. And in doing that, it sort of roots you in that character's point of view, and you're not getting information they're not getting. And I don't know, there's something, we just did another film called The Coup that we're just finishing right now. And, it's the same thing. It's a family caught in a crisis. You're not getting any news, any information that they don't see, and we don't subtitle things if they're not understanding what's being said.
It's experiential in the same way that a found footage movie is, but it's not bound by the same restraints that a found footage movie is. So we've always liked that style. We did Poughkeepsie tapes, and we shoot that in 2005, and that was kind of a faux documentary about found footage, and that back then, if you were making a movie like that, it was really important that you made it, try to be real almost, or we embraced the nonfiction or the fictional nature of it, but you had to really go for kind of a nonfiction feel. But now it feels like found footage, you can really kind of embrace a fictional nature. Audiences don't need to believe it's actually real; they just want it to feel real, and the performances to feel real, and it's really opened up, I think, in a lot of ways.
For sure. Well, speaking of realism, you guys shot As Above, So Below in the real catacombs beneath Paris.
We did.
Bold. Yes, give it up for that. So while you have these characters running around and experiencing all this claustrophobia and stuff, how many crew did you have just directly behind, also dodging low ceilings and bones?
We had maybe 10 people sort of running. The walls were so thick, no walkies worked through them. Obviously no cell phones, no walkies. We kept saying we need some Kenyan marathon runner to just run the tunnels, go up and get shit and bring it back down. Because it was just you forget something up in the truck. It was a half an hour turnaround, and our wireless monitor to watch the takes was it wouldn't go through the walls or anything. So we had to run behind the actors anytime they were running down the corridors, and we'd we'd use it for light. We couldn't have our headlamps on, otherwise, you'd see us in the background. So we'd just put our arms up like this and run full sprint like through these corridors. And we all took divots in our heads, and there's people with neck braces on at the end of the shoot. You get the whiplash from like hitting your head and like that. I mean, it was.
Hopefully, I have good insurance.
Yeah. They made us get insurance.
It was in France,
so.
Just Lock and Eddy Hospital. We'll take care of you.
Yeah, you guys did As Above in Paris, or underneath Paris, and The Coup you shot in Thailand.
Yeah.
Before I had seen this film, I was like, these guys are just globetrotting. Yeah, we'll write a movie in Thailand. And then I saw this, like, they were not experiencing Paris.
No. Everyone's like, oh, life must be rough. Summer in Paris. It's like, well, 5 stories underground. It's actually freezing down there. It was like, 30, 40 degrees. So, yeah, so it was a dark summer in Paris.
Yeah.
But we do it for the art.
But Paris is still amazing. It was still,
Yeah.
Can't complain still.
It's a great place to shoot, and part of it shooting found footage. It was partially like function too. Like you couldn't shoot standard like setting up lights and like you just couldn't do it in the normal way. So we had the actors light it themselves, which is dangerous, but it worked. It worked. It feels real. We had the actors shoot like that last scene when they're all standing around the hole right before jumping in. Like Scarlett is actually the camera she's holding is the only light source, and that was the point at which the DP, like, I kept saying like push it harder, and that was the scene. I was like, are you sure? Like that's it? Like this is like a key scene. He's like, come on, now you're, this is radical. It's this French DP.
French
this is radical. And I was like, all right, and it looks, it looks real. It looks really, really amazing. It's sort of embracing some of those imperfections.
Quarantine, we were much more, precise, and it was our first studio film. I think we were a lot more, nervous, and we were a lot more precise about where the camera was. We had the F-23, which was just a hog, and on this one we're like, let's embrace the accidental nature of the lighting, and let's really just see where the lighting lands, where the camera lands, and our DP, we had him do something different every take, so every actor was always ready for a close-up, or always in it. They could never take a single take off, because it might be their close-up on that take, and that was fun for them too. It was like an action sport.
Yeah, that brings me to an editing question, of which we'll get to more in a little bit. But whenever you're doing this found footage stuff, I mean, I think all of us, if we've been in an edit room and trying to stitch stuff together, you always kind of have that moment where you're like, I don't have that shot. Oops.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
How many times did that happen? Because clearly, I mean, if you're really you're just running and gunning and making it happen in the edit bay, I mean, you're stitching this stuff together, and like you obviously don't have like your shot reverse. How much of a challenge is that to just try to, I mean, you're trying to effectively tell this story, but you don't have coverage of these things?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I like to tell people, like, for me, the darkest time in filmmaking is the first 2 weeks of editorial. Because you're watching the dailies, you're like, I'm rocking this shit, and then you get into editorial, and the first 2 weeks you're like, I just blew it, and then it's just putting the screws to it. You go through this depressing zone, and then you say, Elliot, our editor, you're like, Elliot, you gotta fix this. You gotta save us.
Well, it's amazing how much you can shape, a movie in editorial, and how much you can shape an actor's performance in editorial too. It really, it can go a long way. I mean, you can, we had one actor that came off initial cuts was, kind of a dark performance, a good performance, but dark, and we literally just, over the course of 4 or 5 weeks, turned it into like a really, upbeat, totally different tone, completely, just based on.
At times, cutting him like syllable by syllable.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we really, got in there.
But yeah, editorial is kind of an amazing process, and you have to have a lot of patience. But I really think so much of a movie is made in post.
Absolutely. Well, I think I don't want to speak for everyone, but we all just watched a pretty amazing horror film. There's something about the horror genre that just has this gravitational pull. I think for audiences and filmmakers alike. Obviously, we're in the midst of our Halloween season here at the Space. There's a lot of really cool horror and Halloween stuff being shot right now. What is it for you